So let's get started. So I did have a request. By the way, welcome to week 3 of the Playing and Teaching Ukulele course. We're making a lot of progress. Some of you have turned in your audio assignments already for the Don't Worry, Be Happy and the 2-1-5 chord progressions and the A major blues, and that's really great. For those of you that aren't aware, I did make some video examples. They're low quality audio and video, but hopefully they'll work, and those are in the questions and comments discussion in the week 3 folder. So I'm going to start off with a question or a request from Bill about muting technique, and I think he was referring to, probably doing the reggae strum would be one example, where we mute the strings to make it a little more precise. So that would sound like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And so what's happening there is I'm doing a down, up, down, and on the second down I'm basically just putting my hand on the strings. So if you want to practice that, for those of you that are very beginners, you would just go down, up, touch, and you kind of flatten your hand out. As I mentioned in the first video, I kind of use my index finger, but you could use your your fingers. Some people kind of do a little finger movement like that. But the third action you're going to make is just touching the strings. So 1. So it's down, up, touch, down, up, touch, down, up, touch, down, up, touch. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if you want, you can also kind of mute with your wrist area on the strings. You could do kind of just a chunk. That would probably come into play more if you were plugged into an amplifier. But for regular muting, you can use your hand. But you can use kind of your whole arm or your wrist. So you just have to experiment. We're all different sizes and shapes, and we all have different size and shaped ukuleles, so you're gonna have to figure out which part of your hand or arm you're gonna use for that. But that's the basic technique. It's just a kind of putting your hand on the strings. Alright, I hope that answers the question. If not, let me know. So please type your questions or requests. I'm going to make sure you guys are added to the call while that's coming in. Okay. And Stachia has I hope I'm saying your name right, question. Can we use strum patterns that you did not go over? Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different strumming patterns out there. So, you guys just pick the pattern that you want to use for a particular song. There's quite a few. What I tried to do is give you, 4 or 5 patterns that you could use in a lot of different styles of music, but certainly there's many more besides that. So I absolutely use a different pattern, and if you want, just share it. I think you can all add audio and video to your comments and posts as well in the discussions, so that would be a great place to do that. And you can describe your strum pattern in terms of down and ups. So if you watch some of the YouTube videos that people have, that's what they usually do. So let's say I have a pattern that I really like, and it's down, down, up, down, down, up, down, and then I would just say that. Down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down. that's copyrighted too, by the way. That strum that I just did. It's very high tech and secret. Okay, Mary had a question. Is that the strumming pattern you used in the Don't Worry example? Yes. So the Don't Worry example is the reggae strum, and that was the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 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 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2. So you're going to do 4 little down ups, and that's 2 bars each chord. So it's fairly simple. It's C, D minor, F, and C. So have fun with that. You might have to practice it a little bit, and because if you're singing, you might get lost a little. But that's normal, so don't worry about it. Just keep practicing, and you'll get it. And Elaine had a question: are we supposed to try to not look at our left hand? That is a great goal. When you're first starting off, of course, I wouldn't expect you to be able to play without looking at your left hand. But what I would recommend is that you start trying to do some of the easier chords without looking at your left hand. If you can get the chord without looking, then just get it without looking. If you start looking a lot, you might get into the habit of looking, and then it just becomes a hindrance later on. Because you're going to want to do other things like look at your students and interact with your students while you're playing. So you certainly want to get out of the habit of looking at your left hand. You're also going to want to read chord charts or music, sheet music, or at least read lyrics that might be up on the whiteboard or blackboard or on a piece of paper. So the more you can do without looking at your left hand, the better. But of course, I know that takes time. But you could start off by playing the C7 chord without looking, hopefully. Right? Because that's just the one finger down in the corner. And then you could try to go back and forth between C and C7, because that's just your first finger and your third finger. Do that, and then maybe go to F. Try to find that. But give yourself time, go slow, and do it at a slow enough tempo so you can have some success, and then you can speed that up. So you don't have to try to do it at full tempo or in a pressurized situation where you're trying to do chord progressions. Just take one chord at a time, hover your fingers like I talked about last time, hover your fingers over the frets and the strings, and then see if you can place them back down. And as we get into these 2-finger, 3-finger chords and bar chords, we're going to talk more about chord shapes, and this is really important, where you're doing these fingerings, and rather than, it's basically going to be chunking. You're going to chunk these finger positions together. So instead of thinking about each finger and where it goes, it just becomes one thing, which is that chord shape, if that makes sense. Those of you that play guitar will understand that probably. But as you play, you're going to get chord shapes, and then you can apply those different chord shapes to different chords, and some of that transfers and it generalizes into other areas, especially as you go up the neck, especially with bar chords, of course, where you might want to move a chord up, like a 7 chord. We start with A7, but instead of playing it with the index finger, you're going to play it with your second finger. I'm getting ahead of where you guys are right now, but I'm just giving you an example where you could start with your second finger on A7 and then just move up 1 fret at a time. B flat, B, C, C sharp, etc. And that's just the same chord shape. Okay, so how do we know which one to pick? Which strumming pattern to pick? If you could clarify. Yes, okay. So, that's just musical preference. Whatever you think sounds right for a particular song. I don't think there's any correct or incorrect one. You can do, you can do Mary Had a Little Lamb with reggae strumming if you want. That's nothing wrong with that. But I think there's some songs, let's say somebody mentioned Puff the Magic Dragon, so that's probably going to be more of an open kind of strumming sound as opposed to the more tight, staccato feeling of a reggae strum. But try Puff the Magic Dragon with a reggae strum, or try it with a rock and roll strumming, all down strumming, if you want. I'm a big fan of kind of mixing things up, and I think that the more different ways you can play a song, the better, because some days it might feel like the right thing, like your kids there might be a certain energy level that you want to match, and you could do the same song and then just do it in a different style of music. And it's a great way to increase the kids' musicality too, because they might get used to hearing a song done a certain way, and they might think that that song is just done that way always. And we want to, part of our job as teachers is to get them thinking about dynamics and about different tempos and about different styles, and applying those styles to the same song, and open up their musical minds to that possibility, so that they don't think that they have to do the song a certain tempo and a certain style, and that's the right way and every other way is the wrong way. So that's of course not the case. So we want to experiment with different strumming styles. So absolutely, just experiment. You could try the same song in 3 different strums, for example, if you want to, and record it and see what they sound like, or submit it as one of your assignments. Okay, so Kim asked, do we have to do the reggae strum for Don't Worry, or can we use our own? You can do your own, although I don't know if I asked you to do the reggae strum or not. I'm probably not going to penalize you, but I would recommend at least trying to do it with the reggae strum, since that's more of the style. It's up to you. In the recording, of course, Bobby McFerrin uses just voice, but he's doing a little chord with his voice, and I think it's sort of like a kind of thing with his, and he's doing a little chord there, and that's imitating the reggae strum. So that's why I would suggest that you use the reggae strum. But you can use any strum that you feel comfortable with. Okay, any other questions right now? I think we're going to keep trying to add those people who are not on to the call. Okay, so Mary asks, is there a particular strumming pattern that you prefer for the blues progression? Not really, but you could, I think the blues sounds good when you just do kind of what I would classify as the Count Basie guitarist style. I mean, I used to have my college roommate was a guitar player and a very good jazz guitar player, and he pointed out to me that Count Basie's guitar player would always just do down strums. That's all well, don't quote me on this, but according to him, he would just play, I'm sorry, and he just would be quarter notes. And it's just steady. So that's just a thing. I sometimes use my thumb to get a different sound. That's more of a muted, staccato kind of sound. But you could do something like so that's a down, down, up, down, down, up, and then that's kind of a little muted strumming thing towards the last part of the bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But that's just a personal style thing. And honestly, when you're first starting out, I wouldn't think that I would try to add too much nuance to your strumming, because you've got a lot of things you're thinking about, a lot of things you're trying to do at once, which is the fingering, the chords, changing the chords at the right time, and then playing in rhythm, playing to the click or whatever you have, and then maybe thinking about the song form overall and singing the words. And that's a lot of stuff to have happening at the same time. So make it easy on yourself. And again, you know, blues, it's, and I know this is a general comment, but blues is all about the feel. So, you know, whatever the blues means to you, try to express that with your strumming. Right now, you're probably not going to have a huge vocabulary of technique and strumming, but that's okay. So you could start off with just down strums, maybe throw in a little up, but of course, usually, not always, the blues would be done in a swing feel. So why don't we just say that if you can, try to strum with a little swing feel, which would be that as opposed to bum, 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 bum. Okay, so that could be a goal. All right, let's see. Lois asks, I know there are capos for guitars. There's such a thing for ukulele. Some people do use capos on ukulele. It's not really common, but you can do it. And I don't usually do it because I don't need to be in a key that's in between. You know, so I basically play in the keys of C, F, G, and A. I could play in D. It's a little less common. A is a little less common. But usually when you're playing ukulele, you're playing in C, F, or G. So you've got one, you know, you're going to one flat or you're going to one sharp. And that's usually okay, because if I need to transpose, let's say the song is in a range that's either too low or too high, you can always go a fourth or a fifth away. So if you're in F, you can go to C. If you're in C, you can go to G or F. If you're in G, you can go to C. You know, so it usually will give you enough variety, so you don't need to capo it to, like, you know, D sharp or E flat or something and try to get in between there. If you wanted to match other instruments like a piano or a guitar, of course, then you might want to capo it, so you're not having to play C sharp, you know, and E flat and those kinds of chords. But those don't. You can do those on ukulele, but they're not as easy. You have to do bar chords and other kinds of fingerings. It gets a little more complex. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Statue is asking, what are capos? A capo, and I don't have one right with me, a capo is just a clip that you put on, you've probably seen guitar players do this, they clip it on the strings, and what it does is it acts like the nut, so that, for example, we know that this open sound is the C, basically in C, C6 chord. So if I want to make it easy on myself and just do the same chord shapes as C and F and G, but I want to be in the key of D, I can capo this up 2 frets to here. And then the capo is going to act like the nut. So I would just pretend the capo is the end of my ukulele, the first fret basically, and I would move the numbers of the frets up 2 frets. So I would treat the capo like it's the nut basically. I hope that makes sense, and it would raise the whole pitch. And in doing so, you can transpose the range of the instrument, so you can play, say, in D or E flat, and still use the fingerings that you know for the key of C, or the key of F, or the key of G. So if you capoed up to the second fret and you did your F chord, then it would sound like a G, right? Or you played G, it would be an A. All right? Okay, so Jennifer's asking, do you ever play melodies rather than chords? You know, of course, a lot of players do. I don't find a need for it that much. Certainly, if you guys want to get into playing melodies, I think that's great. For my purposes, I use the ukulele as an accompaniment instrument for songs. And so I'm not usually playing the melody on the ukulele like Jake Shimabukuro would do, where he's accompanying himself. And he also doesn't sing, so he's playing the whole song, melody and chords, on the ukulele. I think it's nice to be able to do it. I don't spend a lot of time doing that. I usually, if I need the melody, I'm probably just going to sing it or hum it, you know, say just vocalize it. So, but if you guys want to go beyond the scope of this course and, you know, start playing melodies, I think that's great, and I'm behind you in doing that. We're not necessarily going to get into that because I think there's so much we need to do just to get you to the point where you're comfortable accompanying yourself and your students singing a song and teaching your students how to accompany themselves to sing songs. And so for me, that's the main goal. And then anything other than that is just icing on the cake. Okay, so Lois was saying, I noticed that the keys for beginning ukulele are better for women's singing ranges than the beginning chords for guitar. I agree. I would assume that there'd be better keys for younger students as well. I think so. Yeah, I think they're better. The key of C, the key of, well, G. It depends on the song, really, but C or F or G. It depends on where the melody sits in the staff, you know, in the range, but generally speaking, you're going to be okay with the key of C. And of course, all of your Orff instruments, your recorders, some of the other instruments that you might have, like boomwhacker tubes in a diatonic set, or Joya tubes, or tuned percussion, other instruments, will already be geared towards the key of C. And Orff instruments, of course, you are geared towards playing in F and playing in G as well, in addition to any modes that you would derive out of those combination of notes. So I agree with you. I sometimes I'm a baritone bass, and sometimes the key of C just does not work for me. I'm either singing really low or towards the top of my register. But you know, we all have different ranges, and we just have to do our best wherever the song is. Of course, for you all, you're going to be placing that song so your students are in a comfortable range for where they need to sing. All right, any other questions? We're probably going to wrap up pretty soon, so let's just see if we can get a couple more questions in, and then I'm going to post this video as soon as I can to YouTube so everybody can see the whole thing. And in the future, Rick Polisi with Vandercook is looking into using WebEx, which I think is a little bit nicer system for video chats. But we'll make do. We'll do the best we can. And if I can get something else happening that's just as good or better than this in the meantime, I will. I think Google Hangouts is pretty good. Because I can actually broadcast to YouTube at the same time and then use that for comments and things. So I'll see if I can do that. So I'm not seeing any other, I'm not seeing too many other questions. So if you guys have anything else, let me know soon. Otherwise, I'm probably going to just review a couple things and then sign off. So the things that are coming up are the rest of the 3-finger chords and bar chords. And bar chords are a little challenging for beginners sometimes. It just depends. But that's where I'm going to give you a preview right now. That's where you'd place your finger across all 4 strings, and you're making a bar. You're kind of capoing those strings. So one of the chords you're going to learn is B flat, for example. Because we know that this is A, right here, down at the bottom, 2 strings. I don't know how well you can see that, but that's A. So if we want to play B flat, what we're going to do is we're going to keep that chord shape, but we're going to replace our 1st and 2nd finger with our 2nd and 3rd fingers. So I still have that, and then I'm going to use my index finger like the nut and slide that whole thing up. And this is coming up in the videos that you're going to have for week 4. But that's how I can play B flat. And then actually, once I have this happening, I can just go up the neck. So I can play B flat, I can play B, C, C sharp. So there's E flat. It does get kind of high, but that's how you would do that. There's also a bar chord for the 7 chord. So we had A7 here. So this is B flat 7. There's one for D7. because we had C7 here, and then you're just going to slide that up 2 frets to D7. So that's a preview. Don't worry about that too much right now. Your practicing tips for this week are, remember to hover your fingers over the frets, so you're not removing, you're not opening up your fingers between chords. That's going to make it harder. So see if you can just hover kind of in the shape that you might be going to. Like if I'm going to go to F, I want to sort of get that F shape happening. So if I'm playing C and then it's kind of ready, I can just put my fingers down. And then F to G7 is pretty easy because you're just here. You're practically already in the G7, so you're just moving your fingers down right there. And then G7, you just lift your fingers and slide your third finger up. Lift your top 2 and then slide your third finger up. So you can practice moving around that cycle, C, F, G7, C. And that, of course, is a really useful chord progression for a lot of songs. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up. I want to thank you guys for being here. I apologize for any technical difficulties, but we're just doing the best we can. And I'll post this video hopefully later tonight or tomorrow at the latest on YouTube, and I'll put a link in the links folder. Have a great time doing your assignments, and I'll see you guys on the Schoology site. Good night.